Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about the Systemic War demo and how to handle unit production, unit recruitment, as well as unit organization, because all those factors are going to matter in terms of winning against Russia. There's roughly 40 Russian brigades arrayed against you. You can have just as many units as Russia, but they will have some very substantial advantages in terms of logistics, in terms of quality of units. You do have some better units than they do, to be sure. The Germans, the British, the Americans, some of the Abrams and Black Panthers that you do have as Poland, but a lot of your units will also have a bunch of very old stuff as well. And you're in a situation where you gotta manage it. Now, the way you manage it, the first thing you want to do is make sure you organize your troops. One of the things you can do is create divisions and give those divisions leaders so they have benefits with regards to with logistics, with leadership, all that. There's a lot of things the game doesn't necessarily explain properly in terms of handling it. Another thing that you're going to want to do is make sure you set up Jersey barriers, anti-tank barriers, deploy territorial defense forces whenever Russia is going to attack you. Also, you want to ensure that the artillery is not overrun, because if you lose your rocket artillery, that is going to make your life much harder. The way rocket artillery works, you start with 2 units, 2 brigades, really. The way rocket artillery works is that they can, within the radius that they're in, they can be assigned to a battle within that radius to help your units win. That is one of the major advantages that you do have over here. So it's always very important to understand that and to play that properly. Another thing to keep in mind is that whenever a unit marches through a territory, they're gonna have to take it over. So things like Jersey barriers, anti-tank barriers, civil defense, territorial defense units, all of those are going to slow down the Russian advance. So for instance, if they wanted to take over here that artillery unit out, they have to advance through this element right here and spend some time taking over. How strong civil defense, territorial defenses, etc. are, that does dictate how long it's going to take them to do so. So your flanks can be protective if you put enough barriers in the enemy's way. Now, when it comes to producing units, well, one of the things you're going to want to do whenever you start the campaign, and I would recommend saving after you do this once, because that might just be the starting save point you use, is you're going to want to both produce and buy military equipment. A lot of things you want to produce are the following. You want to produce small arms because there is not really a lot of options there. The only thing you want to buy in small arms is Carl Gustavs, not the M4s. And then you produce everything else yourself. So put your factories to work on that. You're going to need pretty much everything, in a sense, like not necessarily every type of thing, but you're going to want mortars, you're going to want anti-tank weapons, you're going to want anti-air missiles, that kind of stuff. So all of that is going to be important. Tank production wise, not really important, but you can produce some Twardies. I would not really bother that much with T-72s. They're not worth it, but Twardies can be worth it. They're the only ones you do have available. KTOs, for the sake of having IFEs, recon, very self-explanatory, and buy things like recon drones, buy things like Black Panthers, M182s, Leopard 2s, all that kind of stuff. That is going to help you out. So you want a combination of everything, really, and very importantly, both buy and produce helicopters. So Mi-8s, that kind of stuff. You will need both Mi-24s that you can buy from the Czech Republic, and you will also need transport helicopters for your units. Very important here, though, bear in mind, you're also going to want HIMARS, you're going to want Shunmus, all that kind of stuff. So every bit of everything, you need a diverse army in order to win over there. Now, once you do training, it's very simple to deploy it. Just they will be trained in the training queue, and once they are finished, you can just click the deploy button. But let's go over how you actually produce a new brigade, because this is where we do have some genuine issues with the way the UI in this game is set up. That's one of the things I dislike about the game, because it's not really going to explain a lot of things. So you might think, okay, just click on the hangar button, go to, say, mechanized brigade, right? And then you add a tank company, and it's going to pick whatever tanks you have. As long as you have equipment in storage that you can use, that is the game will let you produce a new brigade. So for instance, over here I can produce a new mechanized brigade and mechanized infantry company, or a couple of them. Let's say we delete some of that. Okay, some artillery, right? Let's see if we can do mortars. No. Self-propelled mortars, more artillery, anti-air artillery as well. Now, that's one of the things you can do, obviously, produce new units. We don't have recon, but we do have UAV, so we can... so it does... The game is telling me, okay, this is what you got, this is what you can use, this is what you can do. So I can now train this unit. The problem, the thing that's going to drive you up the wall, is going to lie in the fact that the game is not going to tell you what kind of equipment you don't actually have. And it's also a mess to go through the various units you already have deployed to figure out, okay, who's using what, all that kind of stuff, right? So you are going to want, realistically, beyond producing new units, you're also going to want to realistically go to existing units and update them. So let's take, for instance, these guys, right? We have 2 brigades. Actually, we could go with the tank brigade, right? So we go over here in the tank brigade, and we can see what we have over here. Actually, these guys are pretty damn strong, so maybe they're not the ones we want to use. But yeah, we do have various things we can add here and modernize. The modernize button will always be available, but the important thing to know is exactly what you've got right here and what units require, because that's really the annoying factor here. Because you might say, oh, they just need tanks. No, they need all kinds of things to really work. So a tank brigade, yeah, it just needs tanks. A mechanized brigade, you're gonna need APCs, rifles, RPGs, Carl Gustavs, all that. And the thing is, you can change what they're using, but you don't see the quantities of what you freaking have. And yes, that is an annoying factor, because you don't necessarily know, okay, can I add more stuff? Maybe, maybe not. You know, that is one of the problems. But you might want to add in UAV companies to everyone involved. So modernize things, all that good stuff. That is absolutely a frustrating aspect, because you have a bunch of units, the UI to update them. So for instance, oh, let's say, you know, I'm buying a bunch of Black Panthers, I'm producing toward these. I actually want to use them, right? You got to figure out, okay, where are my tanks? How many do I actually have, for instance? So you go into produce and you can see, okay, so I have 6 M1A1s, 1 M1A2 in stock, 24 Challengers, 40 Black Panthers, 30 K2 PL, so Black Panther Polish made, first 6 Leopards, and those are in stock, right? So if I want to update a unit, then what I do is I close this menu, I select the unit that I want updated, knowing that information, because the game is not going to tell you in the damn hangar. Then what you do is you come over here and you figure out, okay, so I got some Black Panthers, I select this company, and then, you know, it updates the entire damn company. And yes, this is as frustrating as it sounds. It is annoying, absolutely. You then click modernize, that's it, job done. Now, it is that question that these menu, like, I feel like they kind of rush this. So if, for instance, you know, I want to make an MLRS unit, you know, I need a bunch of MLRS, I need a bunch of rifles, but it's gonna pick a bunch of random stuff. So anyway, for instance, over here, we don't have enough MLRS right here, so I can't actually produce any of those MLRSs, any more brigades of MLRS. Constant annoyance, but it does pay off. That's how you handle section. So you build a brigade that picks generic tanks, whatever you have in stock, and then if you want to update that, you have to go for that menu again, try and figure out, okay, what do I have? How much do I have? How much do I use? What about helicopters? Oh, that is the sweet part, isn't it? Helicopters, if we look at an existing helicopter brigade, right, you need both Mi-24s as well as transport helicopters, because if you don't have them, it's not gonna work out. So yes, that is annoying, and it is specifically annoying because you are not told what the situation is. So if I click modernize, it's not gonna do anything because I don't have transport helicopters. Problems with DY, so you gotta always go into military production, try and figure out, like, okay, do I have enough rifles? Do I have enough APCs? Do I have enough all that? And then I can deploy a unit, right? So for instance, with helicopters, I know the exact problem that I have. I don't have enough. Actually, I do have some transport helicopters, so I'm not quite sure what's up with that. So I have 48 Mi-24s. I have 13. 13 right there, so I'm not sure why the game is not letting me update that. So I should be able to, right? Like, I should be able to add in another. There we go. So it's added in. Maybe it was because it was moving. Okay, fair enough. So yeah, that's another factor. The game won't let you modernize a unit. You can add more units than you actually have. So for instance, we have 4 Mi-24s, 4 Mi-8s. You know, that's fine, right? So we can actually switch these Mi-8s for other things. Right there. That could just be enough. No problem. And, you know, just take advantage of that situation. And yeah, generic rifle. This is the kind of thing that does drive you up the wall. I'm not gonna lie. That is absolutely annoying to deal with constantly, but that's how you produce new units. That's how you update existing units. And in terms of using them, like, you just wait for them to be trained. So for instance, I'm going to deploy a brigade right here. And then once we do deploy a brigade, we can assign them to a division, put a division commander in charge of their, you know, that kind of stuff. And, you know, you kind of want to ensure that things are organized properly right there in terms of controlling your units. Okay, so that's how you deploy units. That's how you get control of units, all that. So just constantly make sure that your stuff is organized, you know, in terms of leadership. Make sure everything is all nice and tidy, and you will be fine. What about fighting the war? Oh yes, the big question mark. So the West is rushing to our aid. When that happens, you will get various NATO units. You can even go into the hangar and just update. It's a lot of micromanagement. I'm not gonna lie on that subject. So for instance, you know, you can add some artillery. You can add some artillery companies. UAV, you know, just buff them up over there, make them more useful, because they're only gonna, like, have, oh, we just have tanks, okay, but I want you to be stronger. You can obviously just make super units if you think that's worth it, and then yeah, you know, pick various operations right here, get some NATO support right there. And when it comes to deploying units, yeah, just wait for them to be constructed. And then the Baltic states refuse the Russian ultimatum. And then the war starts. Now, when it comes to battles, obviously it depends on the strength of your units. But as I stated, what you want to do, you have these kind of like specific locations where you can fight manual battles. But you can also just, well, send your artillery to support things. And that's how you can easily crush Russia in a straight up battle. Yeah, just gonna organize these guys again. And we can also assign another artillery. This is why artillery is so important, because you will have multiple battles. Russia will try and go wide against you. And so you want to ensure that you're pushing them back really, really hard. Right here. And Russia does have their own artillery. Unfortunately, you can't just destroy their own artillery with your own. Operation Safety Pin will give you a pretty good advantage. And another thing to keep in mind as well is that you do have like these supply bases that will help things out as well. And one of the things to say as well is that you can absolutely cut off Russia's supply lines. Supplies do matter. Units do have supplies. They have strength. So for instance, over here, yeah, we've already kind of just beaten the crap out of Russia. So I'm just going to send these 2 units. But you got to pay attention to the supply situation, or whether or not units can... We've taken out one of Russia's artillery units. That will make my life easier, so we can now pursue and annihilate. You might want to give your units some time to rest though, as well. I'm just going to save. The reason I'm going to save is, and I recommend, the game doesn't have an autosave function, so you just gotta be cognizant of that fact. Let's take a look at military production training queue, so it's not over. And I'm going to go into training queue and hangar. To create another MLRS brigade, rocket propelled. Actually, I can't. That's annoying. Well, we can actually make it, and then we can update it. It does take a while for units to be updated, you know, if you try and modernize it, so bear that in mind. But yeah, upgrading your units, making sure they have equipment. Russia does have T-90s, so bear that aspect in mind. It's not like they're a joke. Okay, so we've beaten them back right there, and we can make sure you do deploy civil defense, all that kind of stuff. And we're just going to leave one brigade right there. And make sure to keep the artillery rolling. And also move them closer to the front if you need to. Also, they'll try and do naval invasions if you let them, but there are various actions to ensure that's not allowed. And we will be able to hopefully win. Yeah, there is certainly a good amount of micro involved in all of this. Well, just management, really. And that's more Russian units destroyed. Let's just march on Russia. The Baltics are still fighting. Well, Russia did try and Zerg rushed us. It's not working out for them, is it? And keep that artillery rolling where there is especially a high concentration of units. That is how you prevail in these kind of situations. Let the HIMARS roll. Guessing America is not too fond of everything we're doing. So we've taken Kaliningrad and we press onward. Drive them back into Russia. Get that artillery sorted out. Units will recover their losses, well, replace their lost equipment automatically. That's not the problem. We can't exactly march on Moscow, unfortunately, but can we get to St. Petersburg? Maybe so. Let's go pay Putin a visit. Well, that's working out brilliantly. Should we take Moscow? I'm not sure I can reach it. The Wagner Brigade continues its march. The real Wagner Brigade. Imagine losing Moscow to a bunch of Poles. Hasn't happened in some centuries. Oh, we need to move these guys. How far we are from Moscow? Is Putin sweating yet? Alright, do I have my military production? Yes, we do have military units ready to deploy. Let's just throw everything we got on them, and that should break them. Keep marching on Moscow. Well, we won before we got to Moscow, unfortunately, but that's how you win. Yeah, just manage all that correctly. I mean, obviously there's the hybrid actions, you know, to gain international support and all that, but that's the core of victory. Go see and sign out.